I'm going to say.
Well,
Okay,
you're
mine's
already
gone.
co-host, so you can do that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So people are still coming in. We're not going to really start yet. Give people a chance to hop on. And I'm going to stop my video for a minute because my cats need to be fed. It didn't get a chance to feed them first.
Well, while we're waiting, can someone tell me how I can get like Susan and Adam and Joshua who have all you just see their name? How do I do that?
You have to blank your video, the little video icon at the bottom on the row. There should be a video camera.
Oh, I see.
Just
Okay.
turn off the camera and the name should show up.
I see. That worked. Thank you.
Yep. Happy cats now?
Yes. They're going to drive me to the poorhouse.
Our cats know, they're very well trained. They know exactly when it's like 59 and they get fed at 5. So they don't need us to have an alarm clock. They seem to know how to tell time all by themselves.
How many cats do you have?
2.
Yeah, same here.
Unless my daughter is sitting for us and she'll bring hers.
Oh. Yeah. Give it a few more minutes. I'm waiting for, yeah, Al's on. Okay. Actually, no, I guess we can start recording now.
Well, isn't it being recorded? It says this meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, but I want my recording. Where's my record button? Nope, that's not it. Huh. Post tools. Record to computer. Why isn't it showing up as a record button? It always shows up as a record button. It's not recording. This is what it did last time. And this is a different computer.
Jane and Sandra coming today, Susan?
I don't know.
I don't see any little red dots on the screen, so
Yeah.
Susan, my screen at the top says recording and it says this meeting is being recorded.
Yes, it's being recorded by somebody else, but I should be able to record it myself so I can post it on the Rumble channel. And my record button is not showing up in the ribbon. Good grief. More.
Gene just signed on. He may know.
The 3 dots at the bottom where it says more.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and
On mine, there's a record flyout.
Okay.
And it says request to record to this computer, so I'm not doing that, but that's what I have.
Well, apparently I'm recording.
Yep.
Because when I look at that, it says pause or stop, so I guess I'm recording.
We had the
Yep,
message
you are.
that it was recording.
Yeah, okay, because I didn't see that pop up.
The
All right,
message probably only came up the first for the first recording, because now that it is being recorded, you shouldn't have to give permission repeatedly, you know.
all right,
Yeah.
all right. All right, we will start this meeting with all the banter in the front of it. That's too bad. But anyway, welcome everybody to Boston 9/11 Truth. Today is January 2nd, 2025, brand new year. And we're kicking off the year with a very interesting meeting. We have Craig McKee, who is a longtime journalist and researcher and blogger on 9/11 Truth and other topics. And WayneCoste, an engineer, structural engineer, is that correct?
Electrical engineer.
Electrical. Made that same mistake last time. Sorry about that. Electrical engineer who has been involved in 9/11 Truth pretty much since the beginning and has done enormous research as well. And today's topic will be was Lloyd England's taxi impaled by any part of a light pole hit by a 757? So we will have very differing views on this by our guest hosts, and we'll get it kicked off right away.
Susan, you may want to touch on the our protocol, just so everybody knows.
Yeah. Everybody who's on this call has had a chance to read our protocol for Boston 9/11 Truth to keep things civil and moving right along. So what we're going to be doing is Craig will be giving a presentation, and after his presentation, he will not be interrupted by anyone during his presentation. At the end of his presentation, Wayne will have a 5-minute rebuttal. And then Wayne will do his presentation. And at the end of his presentation, Craig will have his 5-minute rebuttal. And at the end of,
Sue,
yeah,
I think we do the 2 15-minute presentations one after the other, and then we both do rebuttals.
oh, all right, okay.
I think that was the
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you two agree to, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. All right, so there will be rebuttals at the end of both presentation, and following the rebuttals, we'll open it up for questions. Raise your electronic hand. Nobody is to interrupt. We will put everyone on mute during the presentations and the two rebuttals. And then you can unmute yourself when you're called upon for a question. All right, and there will be no name calling, no shouting. Basically, we all know the rules about how to be, in a polite debate. All right. I should hope so anyway.
Sure.
So I'm going to start muting everybody except for our hosts. Let's see. Make sure everybody's muted. Looks good. All right. Take it, Craig.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of some video clips in here, and if you don't hear the volume, please somebody let me know. Hopefully that'll all work properly. I'm going to share my screen first. There we go. And What am I doing? Share. Okay. And then, okay. This is supposed to work. Why is this not working? Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, so as Sue said, that's our question for the night. This I just throw in for fun. This is kind of just a picture of the plane crash that we're supposed to believe happened. There is obviously some debris over by the heliport, but I find looking at this picture, it kind of amusing to think of the idea that a 757 just crashed there. But that's not the topic of tonight specifically. So just to give you a little bit of background, the CIT duo of Aldo McKee and Craig Ranke did more than a dozen interviews. They did them in person, in addition to a couple that were phone interviews, but mostly in person on camera. And people were interviewed, had a chance to really explain in great detail where they saw the plane. And you'll see that basically, if they didn't see it on the official flight path, that means that the damage had to be staged at the Pentagon. Here's an overhead rather. The green line is the official flight path, or close enough to it, and the other gold lines are flight paths drawn by the North Path witnesses. So here's Lloyd England. That's his damaged windshield. And you can see the Pentagon in behind him. Now, he said he was driving south on Route 27 between 40 and 50 miles per hour when he saw the plane flying across the highway, and a split second later, this 30 to 40 foot long light pole came crashing through the center of his windshield. And we'll get into the evidence for that shortly. Now, this is a view of the Pentagon that shows, you can see the yellow circle is the Citgo gas station, to orient everybody, and the Naval Annex is with the white arrow. The yellow arrow is approximately the official flight path. Don't hold me to the precise angle. And the red dot is approximately where the light poles are, which is where the Columbia Pike went underneath Route 27. Now, the groundbreaking CIT interviews exposed the many inconsistencies, impossibilities, and suspicious elements that make up England's story. And here's a little quote from Kevin Barrett that you can read there. Now, two major issues with Lloyd's story concern which pole he was claiming hit the taxi and the impossible damage to the car. Because in terms of what I think Wayne is going to present, I think which pole it was is kind of central. Now, it matters. Lloyd's whole story matters because he reinforces the official flight path, if what he's saying is true. And the fact that 5 light poles went down, along with the minimum wingspan and altitude, that sort of thing. So it is important. Now, for years, a group that includes WayneCoste, David Chandler, and others has relentlessly attacked the research of Ranke and McKee. Chandler calls CIT's work fraudulent and has hinted that they may be agents. Coste says he is livid at CIT's obvious deceit and treachery, and I'm sure we'll hear about some treachery tonight, and claims that the U.S. government has been more transparent about the Pentagon than CIT has. Which I find outrageously false. Now, after he supposedly was struck by this pole, or his taxi was, England sort of struggled to get control of the car and pulled it over, and then flagged down a man in a white van who supposedly got out and helped him remove the 247-pound pole from his car. And here we see in an interview that CIT did, where he's standing in the front of the cab and talking about where he was when he and the other guy pulled the pole out. Now here's a video of his comments.
We can't hear the sound.
No,
Okay,
no
all right.
audio. You may have to restart.
Can you not hear it at all?
No,
Now
no.
we hear it. Now we hear it. Wait a minute. Try it again.
Okay. I'm going to put the sound up a little bit. If you can pause my time, I'd really appreciate that. I don't want to run out of time here. Okay. So let's, from current slide, let's try this. I hope this is better.
No, Still silent. So Craig, stop sharing your screen. And then turn off screen sharing. Then when you go to screen sharing again, there'll be a little button on the right-hand side. The two little squares, you're gonna want to click the one that says share sound or audio or something.
Oh, yes. Okay, great. Great, thank you. Okay, I didn't even know about that. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so hopefully that'll be set for the rest. Okay, so I'll resume here.
A car was coming, well, I guess you call it more or less a van. And I asked the guy, would he help me get the pole out? So he stopped, he never said a word. I said, man, it's mighty quiet. It's so quiet. And he never said a word. He helped me get the pole out. The pole happened to be bent. When we pulled the pole out, and the pole was bent, and the bent part took me down to the ground. I fell down on my back, but I held the pole up and laid the pole down, and he got in his van and went on down the road.
Okay, now the problem with the story is that the pole that he describes, and I'll give more information about which pole it was, the pole he describes would have been hit by the right wing of the plane. And somehow we're supposed to believe that it would be knocked by the right wing and that it would go to the left of the plane and then land in Lloyd's cab, which I think is physically impossible, as I just point out. It's either got to go over, under, or through the fuselage to do that. Now, and again, get to that more in a minute. There are no witnesses that saw anything hit Lloyd's cab. Nobody says they saw the cab swerving or cab with a pole sticking out of it, and no one says they saw anybody remove a pole from the car. Now, this is an important photograph because you can see there is what appears to be a scratch that goes right across the road and ends right at the corner of that metal base of the pole. And what it appears, and this is not proof, but it's certainly a strong indication that the pole was lying on the shoulder of the road and that it was dragged into place in the staging of this whole thing. Now, which pole? This is the key thing. Did he state unambiguously which pole penetrated his taxi? Yes, he did, many times. This is the pole he's talking about. And note the position of it. Notice the awkwardness of removing that and then swinging it all the way around and dropping it in the center of the road. Two people are supposed to have done this. One of them 68 years old. Not plausible. Now, here's another.
We had the opportunity to interview Lloyd in person at his house. In this interview, Lloyd cleared up any notion that it could have possibly been the small piece of the pole that he was talking about. And he made it quite clear that since the beginning, since day one, he'd been talking about the long, over 20-foot long remnant of the pole as being what speared his windshield, with the top lighter bent end being inside the cab in the back seat, and the heavier base end of the pole being over the hood of his car as he came to a stop on the road.
And to clarify, it was the large piece of the base.
It's a large, the large piece that was sticking out across the hood.
Wow.
And the pole came right on through to the back seat. If anybody had been sitting in the back, sitting in the front on the right side, the pole would have went through them.
Sure. And it actually was laying on your hood then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But there are no scratches on the hood.
Now, the official story actually states that it was pole number 1. As you can see here, this is Integrated Consultants' animation of the approaching plane, and this was on the U.S. government website. So this is the official position, that it was first pole that hit the cab. You can see it right there. Now, in their video, Eye of the Storm, Lloyd points right at the pole. And I'm going to show you a clip in a second. He says, this shows the pole here. And he's confused about where his cab was. And so he's pointing at the pole and he's saying the pole's beside the Pentagon, but not at Columbia Pike. You'll see this in a second. He seems to be confused, but anyway, we'll get to that. So that's what I say. But where it is, not which pole. And
All the
here's
pictures show you
another
over there.
video.
Regardless of what they show,
They
this,
show you standing there.
this doesn't show it.
They show you standing there.
Well, you got to understand, this does not show it.
Yeah, that's where this is.
This does not show it. This shows the pole here. It doesn't show anything down here. I was not down here. I was not at that filling station. The filling station is on this side of Columbia Pike. I was on the other side of Columbia Pike.
Well, the problem is none of these poles were knocked down.
Regardless to that,
they can make pictures look any kind of way they want it to look.
Well, but there's a whole bunch of them.
see, this is where the confusion is. See, I was there.
So Ranke tries repeatedly to confirm the location of the damaged taxi, which can be seen in the photos to be on the bridge. So it is obvious that the whole discussion, if you watch the whole thing, it's hard in a short clip, but if you watch the whole exchange, clearly the issue is where Lloyd's cab was. Lloyd is not talking about the short piece, and
I say the pole was about 30 or 40 foot long.
30 or 40 foot long.
Yeah, because it was down on the ground, like the telegraph pole sticking up. The base of it was in concrete.
But the base, the bottom part was outside.
Right.
The top bent part was inside.
Right.
And the pole you're thinking was maybe 30 to 40 feet long.
I would say that.
Okay, so Coste and Chandler misrepresent what England was saying in the CIT video, which was focused on where the cab was, not which pole hit it.
There's your
This
cab,
is
and
from
it couldn't
the-
be any other pole. The lamp is down next to it.
That's as close as anyone gets to hearing Lloyd say what pole it was. Silence. You might say stunned silence, in response to Craig Ranke telling him what pole it was.
This is just wrong. Ranke, as you can see when you watch the whole thing, he's trying to pin down that Lloyd's cab was on the bridge, and he keeps saying, "No, I was up beside the Pentagon." That's the dispute. At no point does Lloyd say anything about that's not the right pole. It's a different pole. He never says that. Now, for years, Chandler and the rest of that group were fine with saying it was the long base of the pole. And they only stopped that, as we'll see, in a 2016 paper that they wrote about Barbara Honegger's work. So they thought it fit the evidence fine then. And you can see this is a little shot from that 2016 paper, and with the authors listed on the bottom. And then I have, okay, so this is a shot that shows what Wayne is saying is the pole that actually hit. Although I would argue he has no basis for saying that. He can speculate that it couldn't have been the big one, so it must have been the small one. But he has no evidence to support this at all. It appears they only changed their position on which pole had been hit. And this is speculation on my part, after I began pointing out that pole 1 could not have hit the cab because of the impossible angle and because the fuselage would have been in the way. And here's, this just shows that one of their members, John Wyndham, was saying in 2013 that England was talking about the 30-foot length of pole. Now here, he claimed that he wasn't on the bridge, and yet off camera, as you're about to see, he said the opposite. So why did that not work? Hold on.
He took pictures of the event?
And he was up on the bridge.
I'm not sure why that was so, the sound kind of went on that one, but he's clearly saying on audio off camera that the photographer rather was on the bridge, and yet he claims he was hundreds of feet north of that. So he's got two different stories he's telling, one on camera and one off. And I point out that it's only in the 2008 interview, once Lloyd already knew about the other North Path witnesses, that he made a point of saying he was up in, where that North Path would have been. In a podcast, David Chandler says, as Coste has pointed out, there is nowhere in any of CIT's videos that Lloyd England unambiguously identifies this pole. And he's not claiming that's the pole that hit his car, but he is, as you've seen repeatedly. He says this. Wayne says on our listserv for the 9/11 teleconference, he says they forgot to ask how long the pole was. And then if you look down below, you can clearly see they didn't forget. He said it very clearly, 30 to 40 feet long. And then when he spoke to Jeff Hill in 2010, he said 40 feet long. So they're not only not telling you that, but they're telling you it wasn't the long end of the pole. But that CIT bullied him and put words in his mouth to get the answer they wanted. And this is utterly false. And here's another example in 2017 at their Denver conference. He says that he never said this in the videos, but if he did, he's wrong. He's in error. Well, I'd wonder, like, which is it? Now, this is the drawing that Wayne uses to assert that it's the shorter pole because the pole doesn't show a 30 to 40 foot pole, but nor does it show an 11-foot pole. So, I mean, this is a very cartoonish, childish drawing that can hardly be considered to be drawn to scale. And I don't think we can take it to eliminate the idea that the pole was longer. Now, damage. Let me just.
You're saying the top bent part, the top lighter end of the pole, the very top, right, was in the back seat, the bent part?
That's right.
Now that's the lighter end of the pole, though.
That's right.
So that means the heavier end
was out, sticking
over
out.
the hood?
That's right.
But never touched the hood?
Never did. Because it went in at an angle.
Uh-huh.
It went at an angle.
Uh-huh. So when you pulled it out, you never touched the hood at all?
Well, there's two of us.
Now, this is the pole. This is the end of the pole. This is a telephoto shot, so it's kind of compressing it and exaggerating the bend. But that's the end of the pole that Lloyd is saying went into his back seat. This shows CIT went to see the cab in 2008, and you'll see some photos from inside there. This is the back seat. This is the hole, or the supposed hole, which we don't even know if that was even there before, so we don't know what it was caused by. But that's the only hole that we see in the back seat. Hardly consistent with a pole being knocked by an airplane through the windshield. This is a shot taken in 2001 that you can see the front passenger seat bent back, not ripped, but bent. And here's a shot from 2008. Again, you can see how would a pole going through at that velocity bend a seat and then go down and make a small hole at the bottom of the back seat. It's just impossible. Another thing that's impossible is you can see the crushed dashboard, which normally would be up near where the lip of that hood is, but somehow the pole was able to crush the dashboard, but it didn't damage the hood. Again, how is that even possible? If it had gone through at a 45-degree angle, it would have obliterated the passenger seat and probably gone right through the floor. Now, this is what Wayne has said in the past. In the rear seats, there are some, well, this is the Chandler-Coste PowerPoint series. There are some holes consistent with the lower support arm being the impinging projectile. Now, looking at that picture, I don't see how that can be compatible with that. And there's not some holes anyway. There's only one. And then he says, I've said the hole is significant because it's a hole. It's not a huge hole. It is what it is. I don't find that credible or scientific. Now, the supposed damage to the interior of the cab does not support England's account. In fact, it disproves it. But Coste and Chandler simply ignore the possibility that England could have been fabricating any part of his story. Now, the facts are clear. Lloyd England's story wasn't a mistake. It was a false statement fabricated to sell the official story. And the question I think we could put to Wayne is why he and David Chandler would spend years trying to get you to believe that England's account is entirely true. And I'll finish my thing on this. These are some of the issues with the Chandler-Coste claims. They refuse to acknowledge that England repeatedly identified the long base of pole 1. They falsely claim that England disagreed when Ranke pointed to the pole. They refuse to acknowledge that England's apparent confusion concerned his location, not which pole he was talking about. And they refused to acknowledge that the alleged damage to the cab's interior could not have been made by a 247-pound pole hit by a plane going 530 miles per hour, nor could it have been made by the short part that they're talking about. And finally, they refused to acknowledge any of the questionable or suspicious details in England's story. And I'm going to mention some of those in my, in my rebuttal or in the questions, but there's not really time now. So I'm going to stop there because I think I probably used up my time. I have obviously more, but I think that should do me for the first one. Sue?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, you probably have chance to show additional information during the Q&A. But anyway, so Wayne, are you ready?
Am I ready? So sure, let's go. Let's see. Begin to share sound. This was the one we want. So first of all, I want to thank the Boston on the Living Truth group for supporting this dialogue. I think it's an important service that you're providing. You know, I'm not sure that this is really a a groundbreaking discussion for us all to have, but when I tried to present the information about precision measurements at the Pentagon, part of the Fitterman Hall discussions a few weeks ago, Craig wanted to raise this issue, and so I after that I suggested that we have our own separate little discussion about it. So here we are. But at any rate, here we go. I got to do hang on a second. There's something now, right there it is. Okay, so the central question for tonight was Lloyd England's taxi impaled by any part of a light pole? And the presentation answers the question is yes, absolutely. It's been a long-running controversy. We actually don't need to go over the slide here. There's a lot of human interest stories that were made up about or were reported about the incident, but they were brief and didn't really fully document the detailed questions about the mechanics of the incident. Of course, there's CIT that attempted to do this. So they interviewed and they were really trying to document what actually happened. But it's clear to me that CIT's resulting videos demonstrate an interest in a storytelling instead, and not the facts. A lot of cut and paste and innuendos and things like that. So Jeff Hill, as Craig mentioned, also interviewed Lloyd England. Again, audio interviews aren't particularly good, but he did say first of all, Jeff Hill did not ask any hard questions like how thick was the pole, and this was supposedly after all the discussions and concerns were, but he didn't ask how thick was the pole. Was it, nothing about that. How heavy was the pole? Nothing about that. What we did get out of the conversation was that the Lloyd describes the pole coming in like a javelin. Javelins are not a telephone pole size thingy. They are long and narrow, about a little over an inch and 8.5 feet long, 8 feet 10 1/4 inches regulation length. And the lower lamp support arm that Craig has already mentioned, I have pointed out, is the likely candidate is 11.5 feet long, and its diameter is tapered from about 2 inches to 5 inches. So javelin-like seems to fit. So the overview here is that we're going to talk about a number of these items here. But first of all, if you treat the accident scene using the physics of motions, the location of the taxi, the debris supports Lloyd's Survivor Fund statement, which kind of started off this whole thing. The location of most debris from light pole 1 and 2 was documented in the photographic record. The location of the lamp heads from light poles 1 and 2 was consistent with the high-speed impact of the lamp post mast, the big upright, at a point below the attachment point of the lamp support arms. And Lloyd describes the long pole like a javelin. So this is an image. This shows basically the bridge. You can see the taxi on the right-hand side. I'm not going to talk about Lloyd being confused or anything like that. He's obviously not the brightest. He's not free from getting confused when people are talking at him and using cut and paste clips. Any rate, so what we have here is the taxi. What we have here are two poles I've highlighted here, pole 1 and pole 2. The second pole, light pole 2 on the left-hand side, is going to get clipped. And what you can see is that it's fallen down, it's bent, it's not severed like the other poles, suggesting that was it was hit by the wing tip. And that would have been a jarring motion, so to speak, and shaken, and would have made the top parts wobble and break off. This is just a kind of a closer in view of it. You can see the taxi again. This is the image. Craig showed it before. It shows the cracked windshield where something has obviously done a lot of damage to it. The word pole and long could describe any part of any one of the parts of the segments of a light pole. And this is the small hole that was in the rear seat of the fabric that Lloyd talks about. So let's go talk about what the lamp post parts are. What we have here is a mast at the bottom. You can see it says mast pole. And then there's a lower lamp support arm. Its job is to hold up the help hold up the lamp with the help of the upper lamp support arm or pole. And what we see is that there's a short curved end at the end here, and a long end that's heavier and thicker. If you want to see what this looks like highlighted, I've highlighted it with in red, and we're going to use this little image later on. Here are the light poles that on the left-hand side. These are the lamp posts that were over the multi-lane highway, Route 27, I guess, Washington Boulevard. You can see that they're quite they've got a kind of a long arm hanging out over the lanes. The one on the right-hand side shows the lamp head of one of them. There's the rest of the picture would show some of the other parts, the upper lamp support arm, but there's no lower lamp support arm visible in the pictures from this area. This is what a lamp support arm would look like if it was highlighted, and so you can kind of get a good impression, and the right-hand side basically shows where that picture was taken from. The pole here is about 35 feet high. The top lamp support arm is about 16 feet long, and the red one is about 11.5 feet long. CIT says, oh, it's only about a 6-foot truss arm length, but the ones that are overhanging the highway are about 11.5 feet. This is the doodle. Thank you, Craig, for showing it already. No, it's not the pole mast that's sticking out. He's accurately described the lower lamp support arm, and you can see even has some of the details at the very end, and it's sticking out over the hood. Yes, I know it's not a great 2-scale drawing, but this is what it would look like in a Lincoln Town Car. With an 11.5-foot pole sticking out, reaching into the back seat. So it's kind of like right where Lloyd has been describing it verbally. It would of course be a long pole. This is 11.5-foot poles next to Lloyd's. So there's a short end, there's a long end, and so fits the description basically what he has, except it's not the mast pole. So where is this again? This is the flight path. Yes, it's the official flight path, and it's the one where all the damage to the generator trailer, the fence, the gouge retaining wall, all align up to show that this, and the light poles, of course, to show this is where it went. And the left wing barely hit pole number 2 and completely severed light pole number 1. And so this is the location, lamp post. Yeah, this is just the documentation for that, pointing things out. And what we see here is where the location of the parts are. If you look at the bottom corner of where it says masked pieces 1, that's where the documented pieces are for the mast for light pole number 1, which was severed. It's Craig claims that's the one that actually magically flew to up the street and hit the pole, a taxi cab, but in fact, mast number 2 when is seen there, and the upper and lower arms of those broke away, and the lower one is the one that impaled the taxi like a javelin. It takes about 164 feet or so if you're going 40 miles an hour for braking distance. Most of that is reaction, perception and reaction time, and a lot less of it is the braking time. So the distance is fit for it to have been the impaling of the lower lamp support arm at pole number 2 was appropriate. And this is about 140 feet, highlighted it in this case here. And so if it fits from an accident scene reconstruction. Now we'll go to the CIT interviews and videos. Sorry, I'm going to repeat one of them that Craig has already used. And so during the on-camera interview sessions, they discussed printed images. They pointed to various features, did not discuss photos of the long pole specifically on camera. There is pointing, there's this, there's that, and there's a mixture of who knows what was taken when. There's only one place where in the entire series in which Lloyd actually speaks and tells you where it is, and we'll get to that one in a minute. But they left all the most important issues out of the video interviews, and they preferred innuendo and misleading images in an audio segment. Here he talks about CIT never showed Lloyd pointing and saying this was the long pole. He's pointing at the pictures. There's discussion. Craig actually gave you kind of an overview of what kind of a conversation this was. Confused, no one knows what they're talking about, but it's apparently and you can get the timestamp here from the picture at the bottom. And so the resulting videos omitted the key questions and answers, substituted the innuendo, and created a fantastical story, inserted images with inaccurate annotations during audio interviews to help create their stories. For example, this photo was part of a CIT's an audio-only interview. He's got the long piece. This is what's being displayed during the entire interview. In fact, that piece should be white. That label should be whited out, and the 11.5-foot long piece should be what was the long piece. That's in fact much more appropriate. When Lloyd was told by CIT that the 25-foot mast speared his taxi, CIT asserted it couldn't be any other pole. The lamp is down next to it. Lloyd's response was silence. Actually, we saw this. Couldn't be any other pole. I don't know if I have to go through this again. I think Craig went through it pretty well, but basically, silence is Lloyd's response. I think there was a yeah in there someplace but it's like a yeah. What do you want to say about this? But definitely not a definite affirmative. Nope, not that.
These pictures are taken right after each other at the same time. That shows the pole. The most important point is that here's your cab, right?
That's not.
See your cab? See it? There's the grill. You see you right here. You're wearing the cap.
Yeah, I see it. I see it.
All right. Now there's the pole. That's your pole. See the bend?
Yeah.
That's the pole you pulled out, right?
Silence.
There's your cab. I mean, it couldn't be any other pole. The lamp is down next to it.
Silence. So Lloyd actually does show where the pole was. All throughout all the interviews, all the times when CIT was putting together their stories and the videos, there was about a dozen times where the next question should have been, Lloyd, show us where the pole was. Use your hand. No, but they're very meticulous about that. But when visiting the damaged taxi, Lloyd gestures where the pole was, saying the pole went through. It went through over here, straight back, right? Craig, are you saying the pole was all on the passenger side, or was it sticking out of the side? No, the pole went through over here, straight back, and it was sticking out over the hood over here, came out where the dent is, right where the dip in the dashboard, right? Pole went right through. See, he's got his hands, he's using his gestures. Pole went straight through, over here, straight back. If you put that 11.5-foot pole in his a Lincoln Town Car, that's where it would be. And it's right there where his hand is. Yep. Lloyd is telling you where it is. The windshield shattered. This supports where the pole was and angled out over the hood.
The pole was all on the passenger side, or was it sticking out over on this side?
No, the pole went through. It went through over here, straight back.
Straight back?
Yeah.
And it was sticking up over the hood over here?
Yeah, it came out where the dent is, right there in the dent.
This dent right here?
Yeah. It went right in there.
From here, straight back. And so the the thing that they've called the long pole was in fact misleading. And it is in fact the long piece is the 11.5-foot pole that I've marked here. Many people were confused by CIT's 25-foot long pole story. We saw this one in the earlier video. I've seen this one, but the conclusion is the thin lower lamp support arm is about 11.5 feet long, twice as long as Lloyd is tall. Fits the meaning of the definition Lloyd. Lloyd shows with it in unscripted, only time he really gets to say what he wants to say. He shows with his hand gesture where the pole was located in relationship to the hood. Began near the front of the car's hood and went straight back to the hole in the rear seat. Lloyd is clear and unambiguous in the video clip. So, was Lloyd England's taxi impaled by any part of a light pole hit by a 757? Yes, absolutely, and it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right. Who's going to rebut first?
I think Craig gets questions.
Yeah, it would be me next.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. I had a few more slides I was going to show, but I think there are too many things I want to refer to here. First of all, it's amazing to me that we're talking about CIT telling a story. And yet Wayne assumes that the story that Lloyd is telling, he takes that as an honest story, which I think is kind of amusing. It's Lloyd telling the story. It's not CIT telling the story. I think that the CIT guys, I think we should be referring to them as heroes. Honestly, they broke something in 9/11 research, like broke it open. That I think has changed. At least if everybody was on the same page and pulling in the same direction, it would have changed the face of this movement. Unfortunately, there's been this effort to kind of smear what they've done. I mean, the idea about it being an innuendo, I don't know what innuendo you're talking about, and I don't know what cutting and pasting you're talking about. There's nobody that's done more interviews at the Pentagon that are long and almost unedited to the point of being boring to listen to almost. There's they've done the best interviews on that subject. Everything you've said there, Wayne, assumes that Lloyd is telling the truth. Like when you describe how he's talking about the pole coming straight out, you think that it's he's telling the truth, and it's Ranke and company that are trying to manipulate him, and that's what both of you and David have been trying to tell people. But in fact, if you go through, I mean, and I hope I get a chance to mention some of the other parts of Lloyd's story that are completely inconsistent, like the fact that he originally said that his wife worked for the FBI and then years later admitted that she was a cleaner in the FBI building. But he and his wife were very coy about, oh, we can't talk about what she does at the FBI. So there's all kinds of things that make no sense. The first thing I should say really is that you've offered no proof at all that it was an 11.5 foot. You've offered Lloyd's doodle, which you think Lloyd is very confused, but he's sharp enough to draw a lower support arm accurately. Actually, your drawing of it would have the pole with the bent part going into the back seat, would have the pole going right through the seat, and we know that it didn't do that. Now, also, I think you misspoke when you said that I claim that the long pole went up the street and hit the cab. Obviously, I don't think any poles hit anything or were hit by anything. So I think that's what you meant when you said that. Now, you didn't address the fact that the fact that the damage to the back seat is just irreconcilable with a metal pole that's hit by an airplane that could plunge through the windshield the way that allegedly did, and yet create this tiny little hole, which we don't even know if that hole was even there before. Like, we don't even know if that came from that. In fact, at one point, Lloyd says in the video that it didn't create any holes in the backseat. So if that had been a real pole, even a short one like you're saying, the damage would have been massive to that car. And it's on top of that, it doesn't even line up. The damage doesn't even line up. You've got a hole in the center of the windshield. Then you've got a passenger seat that's bent, not ripped, not even scratched, but bent back. And then you've got down below it, you've got a very short tear. None of this adds up to any kind of hole. And certainly your implication that Lloyd is not saying or didn't say on camera which pole he was talking about, he clearly does. And if you watch, and I encourage people to watch the whole video, because in the whole thing, what he's saying is his car was not on the bridge. It's way up beside the Pentagon. And that's the whole discussion going on. And the only reason that Craig Ranke mentions, that's your pole, right? That's your pole. The only reason he does that is he's trying to show Lloyd that that's where his cab had to have been, because all the photos show it there. So it's very clear if you watch, and I tried to show it with a little clip there, and I don't know how well it comes across, because they have quite a long discussion about where the cab was, and that's where the confusion lies. Now, let's see. Okay, so I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. So, like I said, it's about where the car was, not where. And you're making these assumptions. And speaking of innuendo, actually, you're the one making the innuendo, Wayne, because you're the one that's suggesting that there's all these kind of sneaky tactics being employed by CIT. They went there and talked to these people at great length and put it on video. And they didn't cut it up into little bits, as has been implied by both you and David. Is every interview supposed to be in its raw form so that every single second of video is in their documentary? I don't know how many documentary films you've seen, Wayne, but I don't think that's normally what happens. I think people who are putting a video together make choices. The question is, are those choices distorting the truth? And I don't think they are. I'm sure you think they are, but I don't think they are. In fact, it's Lloyd. Lloyd is the one whose story does not add up. And also you mentioned the Survivors Fund account. That doesn't even fit with the rest of Lloyd's story, because the Survivors Fund statement has the pole falling down onto the hood. So I don't think that's an example. But I'll wind it up there. I don't know how much time I've taken, but I'll wind it up there and save further comment for the questions.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Your rebuttal?
You know, I first of all, I will simply say that I'll repeat what Craig said. I said, in that the United States government about 9/11 has been more open and transparent than the CIT. And that's because we have what appears to be a very highly polished cut and paste video clip put together that tells a story. We have no, and they will not. They've been asked since 2006 to release the unedited versions, and they're not. And no, and yes, Craig, this is a documentary. I've seen enough documentaries that basically are full of crap by people putting cut and paste stuff together about the pyramids, whatever you want to say, but a lot of stuff. So what I've presented stands on its own merits. There is ample evidence to show that there was a light pole number 2 in the vicinity that got hit by the left wing of a 757. This is other material. You can see it on 911speakout.org. Breaking off the upper and lower lamp support arms, the lower lamp support arm, 11.5 feet long, impaled. It was in the right place to impale the cab. It fits the description of what Lloyd talks about pulling it out. It fits with his descriptions. And most importantly, in Eye of the Storm, when they go out there, he actually shows uninterrupted. He's not interrupted. It's not a cut and paste. And he says it went from here straight back. And that is where I have to, I guess, just leave it. You know, I'm not going to change anyone's opinion who doesn't want to have their opinions changed. I've been in 9/11 truth long enough to know that people have their beliefs. But the physical damage, and even the final unedited, unscripted conclusion by Lloyd showing you where it was fits all the evidence I presented. And I don't have anything else to say.
Well, thank you. Let's open it up to the floor. Anybody have questions? Raise your hands and keep it to 2 minutes. Your question, and it has to be a question, please, not a commentary. If you can, and no name calling, no shouting, no interrupting each other, that sort of thing. You know the whole deal. All right, Adam.
Hi, yeah. My comment is that Wayne repeatedly says that Lloyd never describes the large piece of the pole. And however, Craig showed several examples of him exactly describing the large piece of the pole. And in fact, in one clip, he said it was 30 to 40 feet. So if anyone's making innuendos, I would say it's Wayne. So that's my comment.
So since that's directed to me, I'll simply say that Craig has pointed out many times that poor Lloyd is confused about so much. And so with Lloyd being confused and with the unedited or with the highly edited placement of things, I have no idea what Lloyd's actually talking about. When he goes to the farm and walks in front and says it went from here straight back, that's a piece of his testimony that I think is about as solid, is the only solid thing that you can really take from those videos.
Right, but you're talking about him standing in front of the cab saying that the path of the pole went this way, and you're trying to use him describing the path of the pole as it entered his cab as a description of the length of the pole. And that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about the trajectory of the pole, not the length.
You can make whatever assumptions you want about the clip. To me, that was one from here straight back is what he said. Next.
All right, so Jean has a question, unless you want to comment, Craig.
Just a quick one, if it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I will want to bring in, I won't do it right now, but I do have a couple of slides that I didn't get a chance to, that directly respond to Wayne's assertion about cut and paste and sort of fancy storytelling, that have to do with another witness named Robert Tercios. And I think that's directly because I think what he's done with Lloyd is exactly the same thing he's done with Robert Tercios. So I'll bring that in sort of at an appropriate moment. But I would just say that, you know, again, I would repeat something, which is that just because Lloyd says something that sounds like it might support your thing with the thing coming, which I don't think it does, but you're just you're not even considering the possibility that he's not being truthful. There are so many so many contradictions and inconsistencies in his account, but you're using his account to reinforce this small poll. It's, first of all, it's super sketchy anyway. Even if you knew he was telling the truth, there's lots of stuff to contradict it. But I just don't understand why you think that we shouldn't even question his truthfulness when there are so many parts of his story that are very, very suspicious. So I'll stop there.
Also, I'll simply say that when you go through the the CIT's videos about it, there's about, like I said, about a dozen places where the next question should have been, so Lloyd, show us where the poll was. It's not there. You rely on showing a little pictures here and there. The only place that it's shown in that way, show us where it is. It actually wasn't even part of the question. Otherwise, I think that would have been edited out, is when they're at the farm and he says it went from here straight back. The CIT goofed up and put it and left that in there. Sorry.
Well, I'll just say quickly that the reason I think they may not have asked the question you're saying is that it probably never occurred to them that anybody would try to argue that he was talking about a different poll. So, of course, they didn't even think that was an issue. But they didn't count on you guys, obviously.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay,
You're welcome.
Gene is next.
Thank you both. Thank you guys for being here and doing this. It's great to have such hotly contested topics discussed, and I appreciate it. If one of you two gentlemen could please bring up that government exhibit, it was a picture P200027. It was a picture where you could see the poles, the segments of the poles in front of his cab on an angle.
I can probably lay my hands on that. Hold on here. Yeah. Okay. So there. I've got to do screen share again.
Just to help everyone, I would Wayne had shown an overhead where it showed the pole pieces laying. I was wondering if you two could share.
Is that large enough for you to see?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'm on the wrong screen. Yes, thank you, Wayne, or thank you, Craig. So we see the two pieces there, and there's a piece off behind the cab to the left. Is that also part of this pool that you guys are discussing? And is that the upper arm or lower arm, or does anybody know?
So in the photos, things seem to have been moved. The picture that where Craig says, "Oh, that's your pole, isn't it?" That has the curve. You can see the arched pole. You can see the lamp head, and then you can see something else that is obviously what looks like the upper and lower arm of something. So, but in this picture, it's clearly a single large piece. So it looks like some things have been. It looks like some things have been moved around. No one was saving it for not moving things around at this stage. So there is a little ambiguity and a little things being unclear about these, but my best suggestion is you can take a look at this. This is looks to me like a very large, a single piece, lower lamp support arm. The image from Ingersoll does look differently, but that has a what appears to be a very visible bulbous top of the light pole mast, which is not in this picture. So
the one I'm talking about, though, is not the one circled in red. I don't know, Craig, if you could maximize that picture. It's hard to see.
Yep,
It's
I
just
can do that.
above the headlight in the background of the cab. There's another piece of pole there.
yeah, there is. That is I in the video series that you can see on 9/11 Speak Out. There's a segment on Lloyd's taxi. My part of my 5-hour lecture series, and I describe all the different pieces that are there. The light pole seems to have been shattered into 3 separate pieces, depending on when the where the wing hit. That white pole number 1 was hit solidly, and it appears that there was that it was a broken. It was severed, and then there was a top section that broke, and that seems to be it. And then there's a very top piece, which is, I think, the piece that we were talking about earlier.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment here. First of all, as I said before, at no point does he even remotely hint that it was this other smaller piece. But I want to make a point. Part of where the confusion, if it was genuine confusion, seems to have come from, is that Lloyd thinks he was beside the Pentagon, but so when he looks at the picture that's sort of looking back diagonally towards the Pentagon, like looking at this picture, it's like he's saying that that's right beside the Pentagon. He's not accounting for the fact that the perspective is looking back towards the Pentagon. And he's trying to say, he says, this shows the pole here. That's what he means is this pole is right beside the Pentagon, but I'm not, so I'm not way down at the bridge. But what he's not understanding is that he's on the bridge right in this picture. So if he's being honest, then he's very confused about where he was. And if he's not being honest, well, then, that's another problem. And the other thing I would point out that's really kind of interesting about the 5 light poles. I mean, I think the idea that a 757 going at that speed, hitting 5 light poles could continue on with the wings undamaged or no explosions taking place with fuel in the wings is absurd. But I would point out a little interesting little tidbit, which is that in the other case of the other 4 poles, the poles just ended up basically landing right beside their base. So the plane's coming in at that speed, and the pole just goes boom, just flat. The only pole that is alleged to have traveled a great distance is the one that's supposed to have hit Lloyd's cab, and then he drives allegedly back down to where the pole's base is, and that's where the pole ends up. So it ends up right back where it started. But it's the only pole that did that. The whole thing just reeks of staging. I hope people kind of see that, because it's the idea that these poles could have been gently toppled over, or relatively gently, because they don't go hundreds of feet, they just fall over. It just doesn't seem possible to me. No, I'll stop there.
All right, David Chandler has his hand raised. Go ahead,
Hey,
David.
hi. Okay, I took notes on several potential questions here, but there's one sort of a concept here. This picture, I'm glad it's still up, by the way. Notice that there is an extra piece. Wayne, in the other thing that he and I put together that's on 911speakout.org, it accounts for all the parts of the first light pole, and then there's this extra piece. What's it doing there? This appears to be about the right dimensions and so forth to be the piece from the second light pole, but how did it get transported 160 feet if it wasn't carried there by the cab and it was pulled out of the cab and set down on the ground? So the fact that that pole is there at all needs to be accounted for. And the fact that the idea is that why in the world would the cab come to a stop if it were right at the point where this large thing was going to impale it. What happens is the car is moving at 40 miles an hour or more. It's impaled by something which generates panic braking, and it takes that 160 feet just to come to a stop. So the fact that the cab is sitting here on the bridge means the event took place back there at the second light pole, and that's where the braking began that made the car end up where it is. And it also accounts for how this piece that appears to be of the second light pole was transported this far forward. So those are there. I want to just throw in some other stuff, and then you can take it with what you're with. One of the things that's you know, sort of a quandary to me, why is CIT and by extension Craig here, why are you guys all agitated about poles hitting the cab? Your position is no pole hit anything. Your position is the whole thing was staged. And so the idea that you're spending so much energy to discredit Lloyd, you're calling him a liar, and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, obviously, he's sort of confused. The nature of the interview with Craig Ranke was so disjointed and confused that anybody could get mixed up about what they're looking at. But the reason that's an issue is if any of these poles, as the topic of this debate is, if any of these poles pierce the windshield of the taxi, that proves that the plane flying through the light poles occurred real time. So it's a real event occurring real time, which invalidates the entire flyover hypothesis. So that's sort of the fundamental disconnect. The other part of that is that in some of the videos that Wayne showed, where Craig Ranke is trying to say this is the pole and is trying to get Lloyd to identify this big old chunk as the pole, he's doing that knowing that that's an impossible pole. As Craig here said, it was on the wrong side of the plane. This first pole was hit by the right wing. And secondly, a pole at this stopping location couldn't account for why the taxi would have put on its brakes in the first place. So I'm saying it was, and then Craig, once he tries to go through and establish, there's two Craigs here. I'm talking about Craig Ranke at this point.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's a lot of Daves in this world too. Okay. Anyway, where the point he tries to establish the point that it's this impossible pole that Lloyd is claiming hit the car. And then if you continue in that video, Craig Ranke turns around and says, but it couldn't have been that pole because it didn't scar the hood. An old guy with the help couldn't lift this 250-pound thing or whatever the thing was. I mean, so he's basically, the whole nature of the quote unquote interview with Lloyd England is to catch him in what they can label as a lie to discredit his testimony that when the plane flew by, something hit his taxi, because that shows the plane came by, and that's what Craig Ranke is trying to discredit. He wants to say, no, the plane was flying somewhere else. So I have more I could add, but I just want to put all that stuff out there. This entire conversation about the taxi, in my estimation, is an attempt to remove the taxi as a prime piece of evidence that the plane really did fly through the light poles into the Pentagon. And that's the main point that they're trying to make. And they're going to all this effort to stage this supposed, catch Lloyd in a contradiction of some kind to discredit him so that they can to remove that hindrance to their hypothesis. So I'll quit there.
You're on screen here.
Okay, well, a lot to unpack there. Once again, you just assume that he's telling the truth. You don't. It's not. See, I don't think what CIT is not looking to make him look like he's not telling the truth. They are looking at the contradictions in what he says. I mean, my conclusion is, from all that I've seen, is that he's not telling the truth because his story is very inconsistent and contradictory. He clearly says off camera that the photographer was up on the bridge. He's very clear about that. But on camera, he's saying, "Oh, I wasn't there. I wasn't there." And as I pointed out, it's only in the 2008 interview where he says that, and that's after he knows about the North Path, the other North Path witnesses. So, I mean, it's ironic in a way that Lloyd himself is a North Path witness because he claims that the pole went over his cab, or much more to the north. So now you say, why do I worry so much about which pole? I mean, of course, I don't think any pole hit anything, of course. But the point I'm making is that the thing that kills Lloyd's account is that he himself is saying that it's the long base of the pole, the base that is attached. He says, he's explicit about that too. It's the base that's attached to the ground in concrete. He says that. So he's talking, and there's no mistaking an 11-foot piece of pole for a 30 to 40-foot piece of pole. I mean, everything about his story. He claims that they removed, that these two guys, the silent stranger. In one case, he calls the guy a friend. "Oh, a friend of mine stopped and helped me out." And then the next time he's interviewed, it's like the silent stranger stopped. And I'll tell you, that whole thing about, he was so quiet. He just didn't talk. He was so quiet. That's the kind of little thing you throw into a story when you're trying to sound like you have a lot of details to include. It's like, that's an embellishment that makes me even more suspicious of his story. Because he later on referred to, after the big explosion or alleged impact at the Pentagon, he referred to the whole scene as being so quiet. So I think that's kind of a go-to bit of a colorful detail that he thinks makes his account sound more believable.
Could you account for why the
11-foot
piece is there rather than 160 feet away?
Well, I mean, I believe the scene was obviously staged. So I don't think, first of all, you're again assuming that the cab was impacted with something, and that it did, that he did struggle to get the cab stopped with a pole in it. And I'm saying I don't think any of that happened, and I don't think there's any evidence that any of that happened. So how did that other pole get there? I mean, how did any of the poles get there? I think they got there by some means other than being hit by an airplane. And I think, the scratch on the road, I think, needs to be accounted for by your side. And I know Wayne has commented on it before in a very kind of dismissive way, like he just brushes it off. And I just want to say, too, that reinforce that, you're making it sound like their whole, like CIT was trying to spin a story, and trying to catch him in a lie. But they don't have to catch him in anything. He's all over the place with his story. And again, I've got more stuff about his account. Like he says that the FBI came to interview him. They went looking for him, but they assumed he was dead because of the damage to the cab. So they just assumed he was dead. Now, how you would look in a cab with no body in it and say, "Oh, obviously the guy's dead." I mean, that's another detail that it just doesn't sound credible. It sounds like a made up thing. And then he's saying, "Oh yeah, they didn't know where to find me." And his wife was employed, he finally admitted, as a cleaner in the FBI building. But somehow the FBI knew to go to her to ask her, "Where's your husband? We can't find your husband." How would they know to go to the cleaner in their building to find out where this taxi driver went? The whole thing doesn't make sense. We've only scratched the surface of this story. And the confusion, I won't keep going because there's more I could say, but
right.
But I really think that Craig Ranke is very clear about one thing. He's not I'm sure that the thought never occurred to him that people would try to make this case for the second piece of the pole number 2. That's why he didn't say, well, are you sure this is the pole? Can you, I mean, he definitely gets him to say it's 30 to 40 feet long, and he points right at it in the photograph and says, this is the pole there, as he's discussing where his car was. Not which, anyway, so I'll stop there. That's enough for one go.
Yeah, we do have 6 other questions and an agenda to go through as well at the end of this. So Cheryl, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. So I just had a question for Wayne. Wayne, do you have any idea how much this 11.5-foot pole weighs?
Well, since it's relatively thin aluminum, it's probably on the order of, 40 pounds, 30 pounds, something like that. I mean, it's made from, I actually, in one of the things I put together in the past, I actually estimated the weight of it. In the appendix that I have, let's see, hang on a second here. Craig, can you stop sharing?
Yep.
Let's try to see if I can, where am I here? Come on, share. Here we go. So let's go. I'm not sure what is in these next in the appendix here. So I can't be on the poll.
So you would
there's
estimate 30 to 40 pounds then?
The weight of a pole is estimated gravity. Holding up a pole requires the weight of the pole estimated at 22.5 pounds. That would give us a moment arm of 120 foot-pounds for torque. Gravity would have pulled it down. Apparently, when they were pulling it out, there was an explosion, which I think is the Daryl Donnelly one. That was the propane tank. But this is my guess, is that it was
so it was roughly 22 to 23 pounds.
Yeah.
So why do you think Lloyd would need help getting that out of the car? Because I could probably lift that myself, or even more. Why do you think Lloyd would need help for that?
If you, I would suspect that I would have difficulty. If you see this picture here, they're both. Can you see the screen? Yeah, because it's got it's a moment arm, which is you're trying to pick up something that's really long. It's kind of like this is what I've drawn here is a 2x6 that's 11.5 feet long. That's kind of equivalent to it. So I don't know if you've ever tried to carry lumber, but a 2x6 is pretty heavy. You can pick it up in the middle for 22 pounds, fine. But if you want to pick it up at the end, like over the hood of a car, that you're not going to be able to do it with one person. I couldn't do it.
Okay, it seems like I could, but okay. And then just a second question, if I may. So you're saying the official flight path is correct, and so is that accurate? Am I getting that accurate?
Well, first of all, as been, I think, well documented.
Right, I'm just asking, is that what you're supporting? That's what you're saying?
Yes, I presented precision measurements at the Pentagon.
Okay, so my question is then, what do you do with the other eyewitnesses who said that the plane went in a different, and they all kind of agree with each other?
They don't agree. You saw the spaghetti curves that Craig showed up.
Right, but they were generally in the same area. They
were spaghetti curves. They were spaghetti curves. They weren't even, a lot of them weren't close. In order to actually make that type of an arc, the plane had to be coming from a completely different direction, and you can't at a high speed. You can't make banking without turning the plane sideways to make it turn. You can't get those kind of. You can't get that number of G's out of just air pressure, which is what a plane has to do.
So why do you think all those 4 eyewitnesses, or how many eyewitnesses there were, that all had a different place, a different flight path than the official story?
Well, I think a lot of people talking about people and their memories, they get confused. And so that's why I've given up on trying to figure out what people's witnesses were. That's why I've been focused since 2015 on what's the physical damage. I'm a physical damage kind of guy, and so you take a look at all the physical damage. It's all aligns with a 757, not a 737, not anything else. Going down that flight path, the flap track fairing going through the diesel generator trailer. The roof
So, but
marks
Wayne,
precisely.
if the eyewitnesses are all different from the official story, then don't you think it's odd that they would all be so confused to be, in your opinion, wrong?
Well, I'll go back and say the spaghetti paths of about 5 people or 6 people, maybe even 8 people, saying that this is where they were. There's also several hundred. There's nearly 100 other people that commented on it, and the physics, the flight data recorder, the radar tracks, the other people seeing it. They're all aligned with the, shall we say, the official flight path, the one that is physically represented in the damage and the other data. And the people who got it wrong draw the spaghetti lines for paths that could not be done by high-speed aircraft.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to comment on that. First of all, the witnesses, some of the witnesses that were interviewed described the plane going much slower than the official speed. In fact, I think William Middleton was one that said he thought it was closer to 300 miles per hour. Certainly, I don't think anybody described anything that sounded like more than 500 miles. So, you know, maybe those flight paths, but the flight paths are awfully similar to be all wrong. And I don't know what spaghetti paths means. I mean, they noted a right bank. You know, I mean, these people are not necessarily going to get the measurements perfect, but you know, they all, and we're talking about people that were in a position to see. We're talking about the Sean Boger, the air traffic controller at the Pentagon, William Legacy, Chadwick Brooks, Pentagon cops at the gas station, Robert Tercios, who worked at the gas station, and several people at the Arlington National Cemetery described the plane coming. They thought it was going to come right over there, or it did come right over their building. Some of them were afraid that it was actually going to crash in their building. And that building, that maintenance building, is well to the north of the official flight path. So, and when you say hundreds, first, okay, the flight data recorder, the animation by the National Transportation Safety Board, based on the flight data recorder, has the plane to the north of the gas station and too high to hit the building. Now, you in your group has presented a case that, you know, when you adjust for whatever it is you adjusted for, you know, it lines up with the official path. But Warren Stutt said to Barbara Honegger after your Denver conference that the original data showed the plane as the animation depicted it, and that they had to then adjust. I may be getting the term wrong, but data drift, I'm thinking, is what I heard. So he's taken a thing that actually contradicts the official story, and he's done what your group seems to always want to do, which is to fix any problems that the official story may have, and to rush in there and find out some way that we can rationalize it and keep you know, keep support for the official path and the impact. It seems like a very weird thing for 9/11 truthers to want to spend years doing, you know, trying to convince us how much of the official story is true instead of looking at the things that are wrong in it. So.
Okay, well,
let me just simply say that I thank you for basically telling me that I look at physical evidence, and that's how I'm interpreting what you've just kind of gone through.
Can I say that?
Well, I don't know what you said specifically, but I don't listen to the things that people say. I look for the physical evidence. At least that's what's going through my head as you're talking, because the physical evidence tells you where the plane was, the radar lined up going this way towards the Pentagon, 4 different radar stations capturing it, the flight data recorder going, and you can't go from there and create to go around the Citgo station. So when it comes to all these data points aligning, there's I can't remember the name of the guy who saw it go 300 feet over his head, and he was right in the right along that path. He was on his back porch. It's in the presentation that's on 911speakout.org about the chapter on the approach path. So everything lines up for this. And if you're going to say that there's 6 guys, 8 guys who draw spaghetti curves saying this is where I think it was, show some damage, but if you say that, well, there isn't any because it flew too high, then how do you explain all this other damage that is absolutely consistent with the 757? And in fact, I spend my time trying to correct all the nonsense that is spewed out about all this other stuff, because this is the physical damage that can't be explained by anything except and it's absolutely consistent with a 757, not a 737, nothing else. It fits.
All right. So we have another question. Adam Ruff. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, what I would like to do is kind of refocus on the debate itself. What is if I could have Craig and then maybe Wayne answer this, what is the importance of the Lloyd England testimony and the Lloyd England story, and how does that fit into the official story? Because obviously it's important enough to have this debate. And I noticed that on the one hand, Wayne wants to discount eyewitness testimony and then use eyewitness testimony from Lloyd and say he's truthful, but all these other witnesses are not. So I was wondering if you could just comment on the importance of the Lloyd England evidence that we're discussing.
Well, so you want to go?
Yeah. Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, so the importance of the Craig, this Lloyd story is that it's an irrelevant piece of a data that has been picked up, and a story's been spun about it that is misrepresented and created a lot of controversy. And there's no evidence for it at all. But it's the zombie story that won't go away. And so, trying to put a stake. And it won't go away.
Well, it as much as you tried to make it go away, you're right, it won't go away. I'll give my response to Adam's question. The importance of it is that it's one of those key things that I think was obviously set up to reinforce the official story. If anybody's going to come along and say, wait a minute, the plane wasn't there, this is one of those little things that's planted in a story of this type, a deception, in order to deflect any kind of questions or criticisms of the evidence. So clearly, his job in this, and I won't say his job because I don't know his motivation. I can't read his mind, and plus he's not with us anymore. But so I won't say his job, but I'll say the role he appeared to fill was to reinforce the official story in terms of the flight path and the polls and the whole thing. And when you watch his interviews on mainstream media, that's most people are going to listen to that, and they're not even going to question. They're not even going to wonder whether is he telling the truth. They're just going to take it at face value. So he's very important in that regard. But the story. But here's what I honestly think. I think they did not count on Craig Ranke and Aldo McKee and Dylan Avery and Russell Pickering and whoever else went with them. They did not count on these people getting on an airplane and flying across the country on their own dime to seek out witnesses and to interview them about where they saw the plane. Lloyd's story fell apart when CIT started interviewing him and exposing all the all the impossibilities and the inconsistencies in the story. So they did us tremendous service when they did that. So, you know, Lloyd, obviously his story didn't, you know, it wasn't as well thought out as it should have been, because the idea that, I mean, he's clearly on repeated occasions, he's clearly saying that it's that long pole that we see on the road. There's just no question about it. You can, you know, you can ignore his numerous comments about that if you want to, but it's very clear what he's saying. And what he's saying is impossible. So he is a key, the reason he's important is because he's there to reinforce the official story, and he fails to do so. His story is exposed as a fabrication, and that helps to expose the whole 9/11 lie. There are obviously many lies to expose, but you know, the fact that his story is clearly made up exposes the staging and exposes the deception. So he's very, very important in that way. So.
Okay, Sheila is next. We have to move along a little quicker on this. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Sheila.
Get myself on here. Oh, there I am. Okay, great. I'll tell you just a little bit about my background with this. Between 2006 and 2011, DC 9/11 Truth produced a newspaper, monthly hard copy newspaper called the Rock Creek Free Press. And in 2009, Matt Sullivan asked me to contact Craig Ranke and do an article on about his work. So I really dug into this. I spent probably an entire week every day talking to Craig and looking at all of his videos. And I came away, as did Matt, being utterly convinced of the integrity and the diligentness, the meticulousness with which they had conducted their investigation. As some of you may know, I don't live that far from the Pentagon, so I'm familiar with the area. And there are a couple of things that I think are maybe being ignored here. One is that why nobody seems to be asking Craig, I'm sorry, nobody seems to be asking Lloyd, what was the big urgency to remove this pole from the car? I mean, you're literally looking at a fireball at the Pentagon that's something like 50 meters wide, and the Pentagon is exploding. There's a huge fire going on. I mean, I can't imagine that the most important thing would seem to be between both Lloyd and this silent stranger, that we've got to just quickly work on getting this pole out of the car. That's what really matters right now. And that the man never said anything about it. The idea that they would not be saying something like, oh my God, you know, they'd be like, look at what just happened. People are dying right now. People are in there burning to death. I mean, that they wouldn't have that reaction, that just seems completely unbelievable to me. But the thing is that it's not that Lloyd is confused. Lloyd is lying, and people who are lying often get their facts mixed up. I mean, that's the reason why cops will ask you to tell the story over and over again, because they're waiting for you to start to forget what you've said before. And this is the same thing that Craig Ranke's doing with him. He's making him tell the story several times, and he keeps changing the story. So Lloyd is not describing a real event. Lloyd is describing something but most likely that windshield was hit by a hammer. I mean, it's right in the middle. It's kind of down low. It's exactly where you would do it if you didn't want to get hit by glass. And there's just the idea that there was any kind of a pole that hit that car and only caused that one piece of damage, that one hole in the windshield, and nothing else, nothing on the hood, nothing to the driver. That's insane as well. So regarding the physical damage, you know, I gotta say, Wayne, I kind of lose respect for you when you focus so much on physical damage, because you don't seem to be acknowledging the fact that all of that physical damage was in an area that was 100% controlled by the main suspect, the US government. They could do absolutely anything they wanted to do with that area. They could plant stuff. They had all the time they needed to do whatever they wanted to do. It would be as if the police found a dead body here in my house, and I had a blood trail that led to maybe a knife that was planted by my neighbor's front door. Well, doesn't that blood trail clearly lead to my neighbor? Yes, it does. Well, but who planted that? Well, that might be me. I just sometimes wonder whether you've even considered this. I also want to point out that this recent airplane crash that occurred in Kazakhstan, it was because the plane was diverted because of a bird strike. It was the plane hit a bird, and because of that, the plane had to be diverted. And then in the diversion, the plane crashed. So, and a lot of people were killed. So we're being asked to believe that this plane was just coming down through the Pentagon lawn, here just plowing along like a a steamroller, just mowing down these poles as if it was just cutting grass or something. I mean, it just makes no sense at all. It would have crashed after the first pole. We know that, right? I mean, I think we know that. I think that's obvious. As far as Lloyd standing in front of the car and raising his hand and saying the pole came in this way like a javelin. Well, honestly, he can't raise his hand any higher. His arm is only so long. He's just gesturing. Again, he's lying and he's gesturing, but at no time is he saying, the pole came exactly to this point. He's just using the body part that he has, which is only so long. So I don't think we can read anything into that. I kind of sometimes wonder what Wayne is trying to prove by pointing out that, or trying to make the case that it was the small part of the pole. I mean, when Craig Ranke says, was it the long part of the pole? Was it the long part? We're not talking about long in relative to like it's longer than it is wide, or it's taller than Lloyd or anything like that. What we mean is we're talking about there's the short part and there's the long part to the pole. Was it the long part? And Lloyd says yes. So to me, that just ends it right there. Lloyd is saying yes, it was the long part of the pole. So I don't see how we can really doubt that. I mean, even though, obviously he's a liar, he's making it all up, but he's not trying to say that it's the small part of the pole. It's the other thing that some people might not be aware of is that Aldo, McKee, and Craig Ranke actually went to the Virginia Department of Transportation facility where they stored these poles, the poles that had been supposedly hit by a plane at the Pentagon. And they examined them and they took photographs of the bases of those poles. And it was quite clear, looking at the bases of those poles, that they had been cut, because it was just very neat. They compared poles that had been knocked down and there was a jagged edge, and then these had been cut. It just looked like it had just been done by a human hand. And there's a very sad aspect to that story, which is that the young man who was the manager at the Virginia Department of Transportation, who was in his 30s with a very good job and a wife and 5 children, committed suicide shortly after allowing Craig and Aldo to examine those poles. I think we can all agree that a man with a good job and a wife and 5 children in his 30s does not commit suicide. So somebody clearly didn't like the fact that Craig and Aldo had the opportunity to examine those poles. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
So it's 8:15. We have to limit some of the discussions if we're going to get through this meeting. So for people that want to talk, we need to have a
there's still 6 more questions, so I think we're not going to we can't allow people who have already asked a question to come back again. because it's too much. We have to get to our agenda, which is important as well. So we're going to take just 3 more questions, and please leave your questions, comments to under 2 minutes, and the responses also to under 2 minutes, if you can, please. All right. So Craig and Wayne, you want to respond to Sheila?
Well, do you, Wayne? I'll just say I certainly agree with what Sheila said, and the idea, it's not just that the plane would have crashed if it hit one pole, but the wing would have been sliced right off and there would have been an explosion. I think that's obvious. The idea that it would have knocked 5 poles over without any damage to the plane or effect on the course is kind of hard to believe. I do have about a 1-minute thing that and I can save it, but I want to get this in. I just want to say a quick thing, the thing I mentioned before about Robert Tercios, because I do want to get that in, and I can do it now or I can do it during another answer. But the reason I say that is because there has been the suggestion made several times about CIT kind of having, impure motives and trying to manipulate and do this. And I want to show an example of actual manipulation. And it'll take me about a minute. If I can do you want me to do that now? Can I do that now?
If it's not more than a minute, go ahead.
It's quick. It's quick. I do have to do the screen share again. And okay. I think it's important. Okay, so wait a minute now. I got to zip it. How do I do this now? What do I get out of the full screen?
You have to stop share and start again.
Okay, right. Okay. Then I share again. Okay. Isn't this going to bring me back again to the same thing? Okay, I'm not really sure why that's doing that. Maybe I can just, that's what I'll do. I'll just zip ahead this way. There we go. Okay. Now, let's look at what Wayne and David did in their PowerPoint thing about Robert Tercios. Tercios was at the gas station, and he describes a north of Citgo flight path, but Wayne and David would like us to believe it's a south path. And here's from Wayne's, this is Wayne's slide. You can see where Robert is, where the red arrow points, and then they're trying to say that he was pointing to his left, and that's towards the official path. We'll see. Here's their video clip, their edited video clip.
You pretty much, this is exactly where you saw the plane fly by, right?
Yes.
Can you point for me how you saw it come?
Well, I would say it seemed to be just over the canopy here, just over the corner of this canopy.
Yeah, that's the clip from that Wayne and David give us, and here is.
It seemed to be just over the canopy here, just over the corner of this canopy.
Okay. So it's just over the corner of that canopy.
Over the corner of the canopy, as I said before, it seemed like it was gonna crash onto the street here, but it did. I saw it go up a little bit, headed towards the Pentagon.
It looked like it was going to crash into the street, but then it picked up a little bit.
Yes.
And as far as how it came over this corner, was it more like the wing or the body? Was the left wing, the right wing, or the actual body?
Oh, no, it was more like the right wing headed.
It was the right wing, so yes. You'd say most of the plane was even further north of the station.
Yes, I would say over the tree here behind me.
Okay, so it kind of flew right over that tree.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the path as he draws it on a photograph, and here's that compared with the official flight path in red. It's not even close to being the same. And the editing of that clip in Wayne's PowerPoint thing is exactly what he's accusing CIT of doing, what that they are not doing. He's the one that's editing it to make it look like he's pointing towards the south path, when in fact he's very clear that the plane went over the very corner on the north side of that canopy. So I'd love to hear how Wayne would explain that. So I'll stop there.
Well, first of all, Craig, you don't have the altitude of the red line there. And by the way, the point of the tercio thing was Lagasse pointed all the way out over there across over that stone wall, way the hell over there, right? And tercio was pointing, it was over this way. Oh, maybe over this way, but it's this way. You can't have this guy pointing that direction and this guy pointing that direction and have a consistent story. I'm glad you brought up tercio. It's a waste of our time, but what the heck?
Well, you imply that he's pointing towards the official path when he absolutely is not.
You go stand there and you point, look at the. He's got
he may be pointing towards Boston also, but it's not.
He's got his Pentagon in the back, and he's pointing in this direction, and then maybe with coaxing from
coaxing
to maybe it's a little more overhead.
There's no coaxing. He does not coax. He says, was it the right wing or the left wing or the body of the plane over the canopy? And he says the right wing. And then he says, and then he describes it going over the tree. There's no ambiguity there, Wayne. You're the one playing fast and loose with deceptive editing.
But we got to move along.
2 minutes, you're up.
We saw the videos. We can decide for ourselves. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Mike Figa, you're next.
All right, I'll try to keep this quick. And I don't deal with the Pentagon much. I mean, I'm pretty much lean towards not the official story. But I do just have a high-level question if Wayne could address this. I think we all have a fairly firm idea in our minds about what happened as far as remote guidance, right? So I think Twin Towers, fly-by-wire, maybe a homing device, who knows, right? I'm just wondering if you believe it was remote guidance for the corkscrew in excess of 500 miles per hour.
So if you go to the 9/11speakout.org and you go to the tab that's got the Pentagon evidence, you'll see my stuff. There's a Pentagon approach path. And the speed going around the corkscrew turn was a relatively low speed, 350 miles an hour. It sounds like a fast race car, but for a plane in the G forces, like 1.6. And ultimately, as far as remote guidance goes, I have come down to I've said this many times, I don't see any evidence of remote guidance. And I believe that the target was actually the courtyard, and these guys couldn't control the plane well enough and ended up hitting someplace, because a plane that's up in the air and going to crash somebody, it's going to go someplace. And if you ever try to have another pilot recreate that specific accident, it'll be very difficult to do. And
I guess that's enough. I got your answer. I mean, for me, you don't put these in the hands of these cutout characters that who knows where they were. I mean, I think people know about Hani Hanjour's backstory that was created in Florida. So I think no matter what, you don't put that to chance. If you have my opinion, which I think is the majority in the movement, something along those lines, and there is remote guidance at play, why would you ever take it with the ground effect and through 5 light poles? It seems inconceivable. So I guess for the people who have my idea of how it was carried out, it seems pretty inconceivable. And I guess the other question is the FOIA that gave us that blurry picture. Why do we not have any video or photo evidence aside from that weird piece?
Which blurry photo?
Yeah, the only thing we have that looks like maybe it's the frames from that garage gate
from the
parking. Yeah, the only
Yeah.
image that was released by the U.S. government was that kind of blurry, weird few
Oh,
frames.
So if you, again, if you go into 911.speakout.org, David Chandler has a blink comparator. And first of all, if you looked at the YouTube videos, like I used to do, Massimo Mizuko did the same thing. He used the YouTube quality re-rendered videos, and there's not a lot of detail in them. If you go to the actual FOIA release video.
Yeah, I did. No, wait, I guess I'll stop you there. I've seen that. I think most of us know it's not conclusive, but it's okay if you think it may be. But I think we have we have dozens of cameras around the Pentagon. I mean, it's some of the most secure airspace. We know they confiscated film. I think maybe CIT knows something about that. But it is kind of odd, if it is the official story, why the U.S. government would not release anything from a mountain of evidence that I think we must admit exists.
I will simply say that if you won't look at the videos that have been released, you're not going to look at 20 others that haven't been, even if they exist. And I'll say that if you take a look at the 2 security gate cameras, there's enough information in those to determine the timing between them, and that the plane is going about 543 miles an hour between those. Plus or minus some error. There's enough data in there, but does anyone want to look at the stuff? No. Who came up with that? I did the analysis. That's what I came up with. But no.
Yeah, I've looked at the 2 cameras. I mean, there's just mountains of evidence that kind of disprove the official story. I mean, I can't even imagine the plane taking that kind of damage and going at that speed, that close to the ground. The exterior of the Pentagon, the weird debris that Rumsfeld was picking up, and I'll cut myself off now. I'm just saying, and I think that different approach was kind of well verified through multiple witnesses. And one other last comment: didn't Lloyd have this weird comment about powerful people you're messing with, and when he kind of off camera? I'm just saying, I think he was kind of admitting some stuff there, but I'll leave it at that. Yeah. And I don't know much on the Pentagon, so appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
All around.
Okay, quick comment. I won't get into the Lloyd's, what sounded like a bit of a confession. I have it on a slide, but we don't have time. But I will make one comment about the video you're talking about. Xander Arena did an analysis of that, and he was able to prove, and I'm waiting for somebody to try to disprove him. He proves that the shape that can be seen in that, which Wayne and David would want us to believe is Flight 77, or at least a 757. He proves that it's not long enough to be a 757, and he unveiled that research at the Richard Gage's Pentagon conference a couple of years ago, and no one has disproven it yet. So I think there's very, very strong indication that video is completely fake.
All right. So
Dave, I got to respond. David Chandler and Xander were in conversations, and I think Xander stopped talking.
I don't know what that means. I don't think Xander has retracted anything. So
all right, we have to move along. We have to move along. Fran is next.
Okay, hi, I'll make this really quick. I have a quick comment and a quick question for you, Craig. So the comment is, I really feel that very few people know how to interview properly. In other words, you never, ever ask pointed questions to an interviewee. You always ask open-ended questions. You never say things like it must be that pole, right? It's right there. You don't say that. You say things like, and I'd have to go through the whole thing of what Craig Reinke was doing to be sure, but I'm pretty sure he was not interviewing properly. You say things like, Lloyd, tell me which pole hit your car. Tell me which one it was. You leave it very open-ended, so that's my comment. And then the question for you, Craig, is do you or Craig Reinke, I just haven't heard this, have any hypothesis as what caused the damage to Lloyd's windshield? I don't think I've heard that yet. What is the hypothesis about what did cause that damage?
I'll take the last question first, I guess. I don't really know how it was done. I mean, I believe it was done. It was staged. When I look at that windshield, it looks to me like it wasn't a single impact, but I'm not an expert in how, windshields break when they're impacted. So I can't promise you that I'm right about, but it looks to me like it was hit more than once. Like it looks, if you look over the driver's side, it doesn't look like a pole going that, hit by a plane going that fast. Would it make that much? Would the damage cover the windshield as much? I don't know. I couldn't swear that it wouldn't, but so I don't necessarily have an answer to that. I just believe it was done for the appearance. I will say this: I've been a journalist for very, very many years, and I do know how to interview people, and I know what you're saying about open-ended questions, and especially when you're trying to, when you're not dealing with something that's as precise as, was it this or was it that? You're, open-ended elicits a much more full kind of response. And I'm always watching interviews, and a lot of them sports interviews or political ones, that drive me crazy because they ask the question and then they kind of answer the question in the question, like as if the interviewer is trying to show how much knowledge they have. So they end up answering the question. And in the case of Craig, I mean, look, it wasn't perfect. The interviews weren't perfect. The one you're talking about, and I think people need to watch. Like I would watch that Eye of the Storm video. It's an hour and a half. It's I don't know. It's how exciting an hour and a half it is, but you really get to see the full conversation. Where I really don't think Ranky it occurred to him that he was going to say, I wasn't there, I was over here, when he had photos of it. So he was just trying to say, but that's your pole, right? Your pole's there. So how can you not be on the bridge? So he's not, I reject the idea that that Craig is trying to make Lloyd say that it was the long pole when it was really the short pole. I think he's kind of dumbfounded that Lloyd is denying what's right there in the picture. Like there's even another angle where you see the cobblestone of the overpass right behind the taxi. So it's, and they even went for a drive when they did the interview in 2008. They drove down that highway, and Ranky said, "Look, there's the cobblestone. You see?" And Lloyd just kept saying, "But I wasn't there. I wasn't there." So I don't think the interviewing is as much to blame as it has been painted. There's a couple times I would rather that they might have been more explicit in a question, but they're not necessarily professionals at that. But I think they did a pretty good job, and they just, if anything, they asked the question so many times that we have many ways of judging the response, I think.
Thank you.
Can we go to the next question?
Yes.
Okay. Chris Spurgier?
Yep. Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Yeah, I have a quick question for Mr. WayneCoste. Let's do a thought experiment and say, as the plane approached the first light pole, say that instead of hitting the light pole, that it turned its rudder all the way to the left, a hard turn, say all the way to the left. Would the plane keep on going in a straight line to your knowledge, Wayne? Do you think the plane would keep on going in a straight line? I'd appreciate your response to my question.
Well, I believe that if you use turn the rudder, of course, you haven't told me how far in advance of this you're talking about, because the only thing that the control surfaces of the rudder of a 757 can work against some air pressure. So I think if you were to turn your rudder to my left, which if I'm going this way, the tail would eventually start to go because there'd be a buildup of air pressure on one side of the tail that would create a moment to try to start to rotate it. So I mean, those are the physical dynamics. I'm not sure how relevant this is to the current discussion, but did I get anything wrong?
Yeah. So you agree that, say, if the airplane, instead of hitting the first light pole, that it had its rudder turned as far left as possible, and you agree that the airplane would start rotating and not continue in a straight trajectory. Would you agree there?
No.
Oh,
Because
okay.
first of all, if you're talking about 1,000 feet and you're traveling 700 feet a second, or 2,000 feet and you're traveling 700 feet a second, your control surface is going to have to take some time to move, and the time it's going to take it to move, you're going to be another 1,000, 1,500, boom, into the wall. So
yeah, but I'm just assuming that say the rudder could instantaneously turn to the left right at that first light pole. Okay,
we're not. I'm not going to address any fantastical stories
Yeah.
about how magical planes might work. So
Well, no, it's just a thought. No, okay. Well, Wayne, I've actually taken courses in aerodynamics. I'm an aerospace engineer.
I
Okay,
know who you are.
So
I know you're
yeah. So if I had a test question, and it would say that, say if the airplane right at the first light pole had its rudder turned instantaneously to the left, I would have to give an answer on that test question that it would create a moment, and that airplane could not travel in a straight trajectory. And that would be the correct answer to my test question. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not sure, did you agree with me or not? Maybe it's not your level of expertise. You're electrical engineer, but yeah, I would say when you turn, if you put a moment on the tail, that airplane's no longer going to continue in a straight trajectory. So, I mean, if you care to comment some more.
Well, of course, there's first of all, you haven't talked about any of the any of the wing flaps doing anything. So those are usually controlled to be coordinated with the rudder movements, things like that, and on a large plane. I I think this is a far too fantastical story, and it doesn't seem to fit into the Lloyd England story. And I thought we were trying to keep these down to some manageable topics.
Yeah, well, I think it does have relevant because it's the first light, the light pole, and it has to do with the engineering and the dynamics.
Chris,
You're an engineer.
Chris, he responded.
Okay.
And we do have to move along.
Yeah.
We're out of time, but one person has raised their hand. They haven't had a chance to speak yet. So Al, if you're okay, we're gonna let Magnus address his question.
Yeah, just keep it
Hopefully it's really quick.
Yeah, it's very quick. Thank you, Craig and Wayne. What I'm going to ask you about is the pole, the third part behind the car on the side on the road here. Can we please look at this picture?
Yeah, we can. Hold on, I got to do the thing again.
Oops.
And I gotta hold on, to zip back wherever it was. There you go. Can you see that well enough, or?
Magnus, you're muted for some reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you please go into the chat and look at my picture I send you in the chat, please?
Oh my goodness. Do you know we've had about 100 messages in the chat?
Oh, I've sent you 10,000 times. I send it right now again. I'm reposting it all the time.
We really got spammed on the chat, I'm afraid to say.
Okay.
I can't look at that and keep this full screen.
Can you get? I've got
right behind the car there. Right behind the car, there's a third part behind the car on the side there. On the same part, there's a red circle is. It's just that it's behind the car. There's a third part, and I have a picture of that part in the chat. So I was wondering, how did that part get there? It's very strange to me because I've seen so many videos of those poles, and I've been questioning those poles for 6 years now, and finally we're talking about these poles.
So
I
this
want
is the
to
picture,
thank you.
right? This is the
Yeah.
picture you wanted to share, right?
Go through them again.
Oh dear. Okay.
Oh my God.
Should I stop sharing then to see it?
Yeah, I think so. Fast.
Sorry about that, miss.
No.
But I really have a third part. There it is.
Whoops.
Yeah,
We're really
That's
fast.
the one with the car.
yeah, I saw it briefly.
And then we have the third part of, there is a large piece behind there I didn't see on the earlier pictures I've seen here tonight. So that part is very important and very strange to me.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, I believe, of course, that light poles were staged. So I'm not sure what I would conclude from the placement of it there, since I don't think any poles got hit or fell down. I couldn't swear how it got there or how the other small piece got there. So I just, I think it was staged. I think that probably sums up my end of it. So, but Wayne will have a different view, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Are we done here? I think.
I think we are.
Thank you, both of you,
Uh,
for being so civil. We
Thank
had a
you,
lot of
everyone.
steam, and I think
Enjoyed
you
it.
like gentlemen. So thank you very much.
Thanks to the group for hosting this. That was excellent.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. I just wanted to say, I mentioned earlier, we had probably 100 chat messages, mostly off topic and mostly pejorative. But I've been asked to share it unedited when I do share, just so that people see. I think what I'm gonna do when I download all this, I'm gonna have two chats, one that's edited for on topic and non-pejorative, and the other one, the full chat for anybody who wants to see it. So anyway, we're a motley bunch. All difference of opinions. I appreciate both your presentations extremely much, and lots to mull over. And I think for those who want to take that deep dive, it's very worth it to look at both sides and really consider without any prejudice both sides. So I'm very appreciative of your both agreeing to do this. At this point, I think we'll stop the recording and start our regular meeting of the agenda and get this out on Rumble tomorrow.
So just simply say thanks for the conversation, Craig, the dialogue, and
thank you, Wayne.
All the commenters, and especially for the Boston 9/11 Truth for hosting this. And there may be other topics that have been raised as interesting things for future meetings. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Wayne. Yes.
Those of you who want to continue on, be our guest.